Hey everybody. Um, I want to start out just by talking about who this video is for. If you're a small business out there, whether you offer health insurance currently, whether you're thinking about offering health insurance and you just want to learn more about where to start, or if you do offer it and you want to learn more about where you can get better value for your premium dollars, or you just want to learn whether you're offering the right type of plan. If you're a small business offering or looking to offer health insurance, this video is perfect for you. um, I'm also going to talk about individuals a little bit too. So if you're an individual out there looking for health insurance, you might take something out of this video as well. But mainly for small businesses, I really want to emphasize with 25 employees or less, and I'll get into why that is in the video. But let me start with the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, as people might be more familiar with it as, it came into place it was around 2011, circa 2011. So it's been about 15 years now. And what the Affordable Care Act did is it really changed things in terms of creating three categorically distinct markets. You had a market for individuals, for small groups, and for large groups. What that meant was individuals had basically marketplaces that still exist today, set up in all 50 states. And if you're an individual looking for a health insurance plan, you could go to the marketplace, find a health insurance plan. The protections of these plans are very robust. They're tightly regulated plans. And not only that, but they're good plans in that sense, and you can get help based on your income to help afford one of these plans. And that made a big difference, especially for an individual market that was non existent, and to the extent that it did exist, basically would exclude people for pre existing medical conditions, or just up your rate so high that you couldn't afford it. This created a lot of stability for the individual market, and it still exists today. Um, then you had small businesses and you had large businesses. The biggest distinction with the Affordable Care Act was actually for businesses that had 50 or more employees or full-time employees. What happened there was, for the first time, they were mandated to offer coverage. So as a result of that, a lot of these large businesses, especially the ones that found it most cost prohibitive, would offer what we know as MECs, minimum essential coverage plans, known as MECs. And you know, the short end of it is really that these MECs, compared to what was offered for individuals, didn't have to meet the same regulatory standards, protective standards, as far as what had to be covered and what didn't have to be covered in the insurance plan, which made it more cost effective, for large businesses that now are mandated to offer coverage, and, relatively speaking, might even be better for them in terms of, the benefits that were covered versus the benefits that weren't covered, but they didn't have to pay for as a result. That's how it works. So this MEC sort of market opened up as a result, alongside the individual, more robust market. And then you had small businesses, small employers that didn't have to offer coverage because they weren't 50 or more employees. But for a lot of small businesses, knowing it's good practice, chose to do so as long as it was affordable. So what the Affordable Care Act created was something called the Small Health Insurance Options Program, known as SHOP, I'll call it. And SHOP was basically a marketplace set up for small businesses where they could, for their employees, go shop for a plan, whatever the employer contributed to whatever plan the employee decided to buy on the marketplace. They could get a percentage of that, basically as a tax write-off on their tax base for the employer. It was, although an improvement over nothing, it had a lot of fundamental flaws. And the biggest fundamental flaw was basically that, one, the SHOP program only applied for employers up to 25 employees. And that's why I brought up 25 employees before, because I want to compare for the SHOP program. Only up to 25 employees. If you had less employees, I think it was 10 and under, and then 10 to 25. So 10 and under, you'd get a bigger tax credit if you offered it. In addition to that, the lower the wages of your average employees were, the more of a tax credit you would get as well. Only problem to that was you had the individual marketplace that for employees maybe that aren't making as much money, lower wage, they could get on the individual marketplace or even for the Medicaid program plans that were virtually free to them. So that really undercut the market big time. And then if you were the bigger of a group you were, the less of a tax credit you got. Kind of counterintuitive. So what happened was, in addition to employees going to the individual market because it was the more viable option to the advantages of shop, and in addition to the growth of the MECs, not just in the large employer space where it made the most sense, especially initially, but increasingly in the small business space, even the individual space, shop, I think by 2019, give or take, was a completely defunct program and died out. So basically, what happened was, as a result of that, the government came out with, call it like a Plan B for government-sponsored coverage for small businesses, and it exists today. They're known as ICRAs. ICRA stands for Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Arrangement. It was better than SHOP for the sense that now it didn't really matter as far as the employer was concerned what the wages of the employees were, and two, you weren't penalized for having a bigger group, employee size-wise, as far as what you got back. Now it's very simple. As the employer, as long as you offer affordable coverage to your employee, it's you can write off 100% of whatever you contribute. And again, it didn't matter how big you were. So that was an improvement in and of itself as far as being able to allow small businesses to offer something more viable that was specifically designed really for small businesses.